Yo, what's good, man? What's shaking, man? It's your boy FB, man. Here with my man, my main guy, Uncle Nick, you dig? Man, fresh off the Easter, you know what I'm saying? Celebration and holiday, man. Enjoy myself as well as I hope y'all enjoyed yourself. Real quick before, I allowed Nick to do his thing, let me give all praises due to the man upstairs who's made this available to me and allowed me to do it. Let me also send a shout outs, man, to the brothers and the sisters that I left behind in those walls, man. I hope that unfortunately in that circumstances that you are finding yourselves in, you were able to find some kind of solace and enjoy the Easter as well as I did. Nick, with that being said, man, what's good, man? How you feeling, King?
Yo, I'm coolin', son. I'm moving, I'm shaking like I'm Jamaican right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to put in this
Bomba
work.
clot!
You know what I'm saying? Talk about it, son. Blood clean. We out here getting it popping and locking. We ain't on no Dr. John Crow vibes. So everything's good, son. After our last live that we did, being the inquisitive mind that I am, I had to start digging around in regards of the Carmelo Anthony Austin Metcalf case. And there were some things that, I was just coming across that I'm like, yo, I think we should come together and expand on these things and, see what the audience thinks, you know what I'm saying? Break things down the way we do, vertical style, you know what I mean? And there were things along the lines of the racial component being exasperated or exaggerated or just being pushed to kind of an extreme level, I think, on both sides. I want to get into that with you. One side of the family on the spectrum of, what's going on right now seems to be denouncing anything kind of coming that way and standing strong in their faith, their morals, and their principles within, whatever that may be, I guess within their family structure or just as a human, how they were raised. And then on the other side, it seems that this might be some type of strategy to use victimhood or bullying or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to try to gain the sympathy of the public to maybe sway some minds. You know what I'm saying? That's, I guess, all subjective. You know what I'm saying? Objective at the end of the day, depending on who's listening and watching. And then there was a lawyer that actually chimed in that I thought made good sense. So I wanted to run that by you and see kind of just what you thought. If you think this person's on point, they might be missing a couple things. They are a lawyer, you know what I'm saying? They know what they're talking about. So I thought that'd be good to run by you and the audience, bring people up to speed, abreast as to, what the legal minds are thinking within this situation. And then I was actually curious as to what he was being charged with. I mean, I thought I knew what he was being charged with, but I wanted to be totally exact and on point. And then in regards to the prison time he could be looking at, and the sense of what he might be sentenced to, we'll get into that as well. And I also wanted to expand on the difference between self-defense and excessive force, because I saw that was brought up in another thing that I was looking at, and I thought that was an interesting point. And then we have our good old media personality, Charleston White. And sometimes my boy's super out of pocket, and sometimes, man, he hit the nail right on the head. You know what I'm saying?
Facts, whole
So,
facts. That's a fact.
yeah, yeah. So he actually has something really good to say on the situation, depending on, like I said, what side of the pendulum is swinging for you. But I think it was truthful, it was real, and it was that vertical. You know what I'm trying to say?
That's where we at. Those the lines we stand on, man. Yo, without further ado, man. Yo, New York Nikki, man. We're shaking. Good morning, Queen. Yo, Dice, Big Dice, man. I see you in the building, man. Everybody in the building, all you locked in, Chip Low. Yo, the whole super tribe situation. You heard politics as usual. A lot going on. All those that are doing something now for the community, man, and trying to, keep, the youngsters, man, in a sense of having a formulating a better understanding in order for them to do better, man. I salute you, man. Let's get it, boy.
What's that old saying, Frankie? If you knew better, you do better, son. You
There we
heard me?
go. Now that's vertical, right?
Yeah, boy. All right. Let me stop playing around now. Let's get into this. So, this first clip I want to get into is this is going to be the stuff along the lines of what I was talking about with the racial stuff going on. Now, this first clip, this is a guy from, I don't know, white America, something, 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 some white America group. You know what I'm saying? And he's actually on the phone with Austin Metcalf's father, and he's relaying a message to him, his beliefs, what he's standing on. And the father Let's say the least he wasn't feeling it. So let's get
Well,
into it.
let's get to it then.
Americans. Fight, fight, fight,
Hey
fight,
Jeff, it's
fight,
Jake Lang here.
fight, fight.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Jeff, first of all, my entire heart rests in your hands. I would be in my position, not even as somebody even knew your son, but somebody that it shares the same understanding. I grew up as a 17-year-old young white man too, and I grew up in fear of my life around black people because they were killing and robbing people around me all the time. And I don't understand, as I was a father, you could sit idly by and not condemn the culture that killed your son. There is an epidemic problem in this country, and your voice could be one of the loudest voices in this country, but you've chosen to recoil out of fear and continue the suppression. Why will you not stand with me and with the rest of the people? We're not calling for racial divide. We're not calling for hatred. We're saying 350,000 attacks on white people by black people a year in this country is wrong. Why can't you stand that and say with that? Maybe you can. Would you be willing to stand by me in a press conference or in an individual interview and talk about this issue that is larger than Austin at this point? God rest the beautiful young man's soul that would have been one of our strongest voices if he was still alive today.
Are you done?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, my turn to speak. You are part of the problem, my friend. You're trying to create more race divide than bridging the gap. I do not condone anything you do. You do not have any.
That's called white guilt.
No, let it talk. Of my son. Let me finish. I gave you your time. You take my son's face off your website. I am not associated with you.
You're creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness, sir.
Promote you.
You are creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness.
Point in history. This is the ship.
All right,
Yo,
Frankie.
yo,
So
yo.
now,
Let
now
me
we
let me
got. Hold on, Frankie. We got that right there. Right now, you just took that in. Now I want to run this other clip for you. It's very short. It's about a minute to show you the juxtaposition, and then I want to get your take on both situations. Let's get it.
All I'm going to say, so it don't be asked later, is that was disrespectful and just shows you all the character who is not invited. He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family, but he did it. And so I say to people, actions speak louder than words. Okay? What he has failed into is the political operatives that want to make this thing a political thing of hate, yet bigotry, and yet racism. We have conservative operatives that have been posting nonstop about this case.
All right, Frankie.
yo, yo, number one, man. I salute, I respect, and before anything, let me send once again my sincerest condolences to the Metcalf family. Number three, allow me to salute him for the way that he dealt with that situation concerning that individual that was just the white individual that was speaking, that was actually trying to promote some kind of racial divide and so forth and so on. That's big. In this day and time for a father, you know what I mean, such as Mr. Metcalf, to have lost his son, you dig, to have a standpoint that he has right now and still trying to not only grieve, but understand the obstacles and the emotional roller coaster that the other family, which is the Anthony's family, may be going through or are going through, because just in that same situation, though they haven't lost a son physically, they're about to go through a tumultuous ride that may end up in them losing their son to the judicial system. So yeah, I salute that father, man. I definitely do, man, and wish that there were more on both sides like him.
Mm.
Now, as for the Mr. Alexander dude, just like the white individual. What was that white individual's name, bro? Because I didn't catch
I,
it.
I didn't catch it.
All right, well,
I
they
can't front.
both of them basically are
Two,
donkeys.
two of the same.
Two of the same. Two of the same looking for 5 minutes of fame. At
Yep.
the at the individuals, at the extent of two individuals who are going through maybe the roughest, I'm almost certain the roughest time of their life. There's nothing like, I don't believe there's anything like a parent losing their child. You dig? So, and whether it's physically or in the sense, again, you know what I mean, to the system, to the judicial system. Um, One thing that I caught that white dude said is that he brought up some numbers concerning, basically the deaths of white people or the assaults on white people. However, it never brought up the numbers of the deaths that white people have caused black people in this country throughout the time that we've been in this country. You're talking about a couple 100,000 as opposed to the million black lives that have been taken away by white people through the slavery situation, through the incarceration situation, through just the poverty, stricken situations that exist in this country. So when you start to bring these numbers of, and though it's sad, yes, white people are being affected in this day and time, but black people are also being affected. So let's not make this no one-dimensional thing geared towards what's happening to white people when, on the other hand, there's things happening to the black and brown community at astronomical numbers that far exceed what's happening to white people.
Well, I think where he effed up at is that he's using this racial angle to try to spin something and use statistics to support his narrative. When I actually think maybe what it is that he was trying to relay but couldn't relay it because he has to prep it and package it a certain way, like I said, to fit his spiel, is that we have a disconnect within the urban community with the nuclear family. And when your child doesn't grow up with their father necessarily, this isn't what he was saying, but this is, just me freestyling off of what you were just saying. There's a lack of respect for authority. There's a lack of respect for each other. And often, more times than necessary, Charleston White is going to expand on it in the clip. He talks about it a little bit too. In the urban community, we're not really doing the conflict resolution. We're not talking things out. We're not figuring out, okay, where does this stem from? How deep is this? How can we resolve this? Move forward, get money, whatever the case may be. It often results in, I got to challenge you. There's got to be some violence or somebody got to get smoked. You know what I'm saying? And then at that time, you'll be celebrated and championed within your community for keeping it real when really you're on the wrong path. You know what I'm trying to say? So I think
Absolutely.
that since that has kind of become even more so nowadays with the social media, the drill music, the parents being absentee, the schools taking over in a sense of parenting the parents' kids, you have a real debacle right now that, hold on, let me swing this way. 'Cause this shit is loud over here. They're doing some construction. If this isn't going to be addressed, you're going to continue to see people coming out trying to use these numbers to advocate particular things when the message needs to be pretty clear and cut. You know what I'm saying? We're bleeding, we're suffering, we're hurting in the urban communities. You know what I'm saying? As you like to say, the black and brown people, and we need a change. And this all, I believe, starts with the families. And I can't throw uh, Carmelo Anthony in that bracket because I don't know his upbringing. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just speaking
Absolutely.
in general for what
Right.
I see online and the people that I'm around in my community. I see how they act. I see how they get down. I see how they talk to the cops, how they talk to their moms. You know what I'm saying? How the father would see them do something and not say nothing. Back in the days, that wasn't going down. You getting knocked out, boy. You speak to your mother, or any other things going on. Like I said, I'm not advocating child abuse, but you need to know there's levels to shit in life. You need to know that you're a kid, and you need to know that you have to have respect and manners. You know what I'm
And
saying?
all,
Because
now,
there are consequences for your actions that will lead you down a path you don't want to be in. And if you don't want to learn, the consequences are going to get more and more severe.
yeah,
You know?
but as you said, you dig, our parents held us accountable. We couldn't speak to a neighbor. We couldn't speak to any grown up. You dig what I'm saying? With a lack of respect. You dig?
Oh hell no.
Or we were likely to get popped in our mouth for worship. Now it ain't no likely. We would get popped in our mouth, and
Yeah.
when we got inside the closed doors, we'd get our ass whipped. So again, you dig what I'm saying? Yes, there is a disconnect, I believe, without a question, between the mother or the father and the children nowadays. You dig what I'm saying? And somehow, some way, we have to regain that power as parents, and begin the process once again of teaching from the infancy stage, and molding our children into being respectable, individuals, not just to outsiders, but first to be able to respect themselves enough in order to know how to respect somebody else. You know what I mean? um we as you know, I like to quote something that Solomon says in the Bible. There's nothing new under the sun. And you often hear me say that, these are things that just haven't started. They're just now have the lack of respect now is something that we didn't, deal with, or couldn't just, exhibit those characteristics when we were coming up. So yeah, somewhere along the lines that was totally extracted or eradicated out of, the black and brown
Well,
culture.
I was reading something and then I was watching something, and there's a few individuals that I tap into. My man Thomas Sowell, he's a black economist and different things. A few different individuals, and they were talking about segregation at one
Right,
point. And how the black family had a higher marriage rate than white people, more
right,
home ownership, a higher rate of home ownership. Um, Teenage black unemployment was that didn't really exist at all, and land ownership and just self dependency and community really reigned supreme. Where after a certain period, I wouldn't say, oh, black people were just living it up, but they were sustaining themselves and had respect, morals, manners, and it was different. And our parents came out of that, and that's how they raised us. But somehow along the way, from what the brother was saying, is that these civil rights leaders, these liberals,
right,
and individuals came in and started dividing the community in a sense with different ideologies, I should say, you know what I'm saying, and different ways of looking at self-respect and victimhood and things to this effect. And from that period up until the present, in their humble opinion, the black community has disconnected from the self-dependency, the unity, and have clung more to the black leadership in a sense where Messiah, show me where you're going to take me now. What do we need to do next? Opposed to, yo, when we was just having to do it on our own, we had it figured out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying segregation was a good thing. I don't think we should be going back to that. So don't get it twisted. I'm just saying the mind state of I'm not a victim. I don't need a handout. If I put forth good attitude, great respect, and hard work ethic, I can get anywhere that I need to be. And if I have to do it amongst mine to get amongst others, then that's where it starts. But it has to start within our community in order for anybody to even recognize that we got something good going on over here. So if somebody's constantly bailing you out saying, oh, that's the, poor baby, that's not the problem. Oh, you're a victim of this. Oh, no, this is why this happened. Bop, 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 boop, boop, boop. You know what I'm saying? Just because the cop told you to stop and you decided to run, jump a gate, throw a gun, and then do this and that, and you got shot in your ass, it wasn't your fault, because you were scared. It's like, yo, come on, man. Some situations are uncalled for, and there are some people out here that are just evil in every industry and do bad things to people. But a lot of the times, too, people in certain subcultures and cultures, urban environments, are raised to disrespect authority and to not have any accountability for thyself, even when you caught red-handed.
no,
Either
that's a
you
fact.
sub, you gotta, and that goes back to, spirituality, religion, and things like that. You've got to be able to submit to the authority, which is the ultimate, the most high. I'm not saying the cops are the most high, but I'm just using a little analogy. If you don't have that in your spirit, you're gonna be a wild animal out here. And I don't mean
I
wild
mean,
animal like I'm calling people animals. I mean, you know how he say, yo, yo, I'm a dog, son. I'm a gorilla, I'm an ape. But I mean, like you moving like an apex predator in the jungle. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not what this is. We have to have civility.
discernment is a big thing, homie. And if a person can't discern what's right or wrong, then they will fall ultimately for anything. And yes, even myself, you dig? And I like to stay in the I statement with certain things because of the fact that I was one of those individuals who was, bred to not respect authority. And that's because of the time that I was coming up, the authority that existed in the form of police, not in the form of the higher creation, um, they had no respect for us for the most part.
Mm.
So I understand, you dig, but again, I also was brought amongst individuals, as I said on a previous platform, that taught and molded us. You dig, whether it was looking at or listening to the Israelites on the corners, listening to some of the Sunni Muslims that were in the area that I lived, listening to some of the 5%ers that was in the hood, holding their ciphers and getting bits and pieces of jewels that I inculcated within myself to be the individual that I am now, in understanding and being able to comprehend, and at that, the word, utilizing that word that I just said, discern, being able to discern what's right and wrong, to know what I should be standing on and for, as opposed to what I should, if reasonable, be submitting to.
Mm.
You dig? So a lot of these individuals, they don't have that. So again, when you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. And ultimately, it is easier to fall for anything because anything consists of anything. So when you don't know what it is that you're actually even placing yourself in, or the ramifications of that which comes from what you're placing yourself in, you just fall into a cesspool of anything, and guess
You
what? You
lost
get
in the
whatever you
sauce,
get.
son.
There you go.
Yeah.
You in a jumbo. You dig? So yeah, yo, Eric, just Eric, man. Salutes, man. Thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, so let's get in let's pick it up now. Let's get into what the homeboy Charleston White had to say about the situation. And then after that, we'll get into, our commentary on that, because that'll kind of springboard off this. And then we'll get into what the lawyer actually thinks and what he might be facing in some of the legalities and different things along those lines. How does that sound, Frankie?
Man, that sounds great, King. Let's get what are we getting, man.
All right, let's do it.
Austin Metcalf, you see the boy in Frisco stabbed to death by Karmelo Anthony?
Yeah, my heart goes out to the family. They trying to make this a race issue, and this is a right or wrong issue.
Okay. So no, real quick, I like where you're going on this, because I'm not even trying to race bait or anything. People are making this about black and white. You see that they're trying to make this kind of like. Austin Metcalf, you see the boy in Frisco stabbed to death by Karmelo Anthony?
Yeah, my heart goes out to the family. They trying to make this a race issue, and this is a right or wrong issue.
Okay. So no, real quick, I like where you're going on this, because I'm not even trying to race bait or anything. People are making this about black and white. You see that they're trying to make this kind of like a Trayvon Martin kind of, they're talking about it. But where do you?
It is. Trayvon Martin was an angry black kid that had to be sent to his father because he lacked discipline, grew up in a home with his single mother. Any well-behaved kid with manners that had respect of adults, once George Zimmerman approached him, whether he's right or wrong, as a child, this is an adult. You get off the phone with that fat-ass girlfriend you trying to fuck, you call your dad and say, hey, Dad, it's an adult around here that just stopped me. He says he's calling the police. Rather than doing that, he had an attitude, because as young black males in this country, we have an authority problem because we walking around angry, displaced from our father's issues, but we resent our mothers.
That's true.
So we're a ticking time bomb. And Trayvon Martin could fight. So that's why I say you be careful approaching some of these young kids. What a 13-year-old will kick a 40-year-old's ass.
That's true.
And that's what happened in that situation. He underestimated this kid, and he was looking for trouble. But by law, he was right. And he was judged by his peers. So we can't say nothing once you're judged by your peers.
Well, what do you think's going to happen in this Austin Metcalf thing? You think he's
Metcalf had to go, well, no, that boy going to jail.
Karmelo Anthony's going to go to jail.
Karmelo going to jail. Because listen, you cannot bring a weapon to school.
Yeah.
So you can't say I was
What if he says? But what if he says self-defense? Like,
there's no self-defense, because if you are afraid the day before, where you have to take a weapon to school, why not notify your parents? Parents, you notify the school teacher. School teacher, let's bring these kids in here and resolve this issue. It's called conflict resolution. We was taught in homes that has morals and values, you tell the teacher. Somebody fucking with you, you tell the teacher. Let the teachers know, so when y'all have an altercation, you're cleared and you're covered. Documentation beats conversation. So words of documentation just say this is self-defense. It's a premeditated crime because you took a weapon in fear. Anticipating to use it.
That was premeditated, though.
And it's at a track meet. You getting ready to run track with other kids and you got a knife on you. No, man, you got to go to jail. You got to go. There's no. So when is it all right to kill the bully? I don't give a fuck what the bully did. He don't have a right to die.
No.
Man, you weak man. That's why I say teach the kids how to deal with bullies, and this won't happen. We're all not equal. Even in nature, you can be feeding a flock of birds. There's going to always be one bird to come in and take the food from the. This is nature. Yeah. You cannot get rid of bullies. Teach the kids how to deal with them. Bullies build character. You go to work, it's going to be a bully supervisor, a bully co-worker. You cannot get rid of the bully. Teach our children conflict resolution. Everything don't have to end in violence. But when you come from the black culture, everything is disputed in violence.
Yeah, that is the problem, though. That's how you.
It's the culture.
That's the culture. Is that's how they saw.
Man, when you write, you write. You know, and I can't really, dispute too much of anything that he said. So yeah, man. I don't know what happened to the boy Uncle Nick, but for now, we gonna keep this together.
No. I'm back, Frankie. Right. I'm back. I had a technical difficulty.
Cool. All right, cool. Documentation beats conversation. That's a hell of an analogy, because that's an analogy that I learned in prison. Over those long years of fighting and going through everything that I was going through, and a lot of it was the cause of me, because of that the statement he said, the frustration or the anger that I already carried for authority and so forth and so on. It wasn't until I really started to change my concept of thinking and saying, yo, homie, I'm not really trying to stay in prison for the rest of my life, man. I got a family that's really supporting me. I'm trying to get back to them streets. Then I got somebody to tell me, yo, boy, instead of you keep going at these people that keep running up in your cells and doing all this other fuckery just because you are who you are, start documenting that. You dig? Yeah, I know that people say this, that, and the third, but listen, either you're going to do things the way that it's going to be feasible in order to get from out of these kind of walls while you still have a chance to get from out of these walls, and that's through documentation. You dig? Because you riffing and you throwing your hands up or you getting a knife and all that other, yeah, it might be a short-term gratification, but that's at a long-term objective. You dig? You're failing in that long-term objective, which is that longer-term objective is to get out of prison. So now you got to start playing their game. So when he used that analogy, man, I found that to be profound, bro, because with the conflict of resolution, which is another thing that he said that us as black and brown individuals fail to even know how to do. You dig? Is why we find ourselves in these days and times facing all these murder charges and these draconian laws with these exorbitant amounts of time attached to us when we go into these systems nowadays. And if given the wisdom that you and I may have received earlier in our lives, which we may not have used to in its totality, however, it was compartmentalized, we had it. So whenever a situation arose, even if we was in the midst of other dodos that was doing things, we knew how to kind of like back away or tell your man, yo, boy, fall back, chill. Them niggas doing some stupid shit. That shit ain't gonna end right. You dig?
Yeah.
one of the things that I believe Allah gave me the ability to do, and why I'm still here standing outside of prison and inside of prison. So yeah, I can't go against anything that boy Charleston White, and I'm a grudging admirer of him. You know, like you said earlier, man. Some things that boy be doing and saying be like, but other times he hit it dead on the head, man. And the sentiments that he used and the analogies that he used are head on, man. So I gotta salute him in the analogy that he used and the commentary that he presented. You know what I'm saying in that clip.
Yeah, because you're gonna learn. That's the protocol to anything in life. You know what I'm saying?
And
Whether it's human resources, whether it's reporting to COs, whether you're in high school, whether you're dealing with a bully,
there's
whether
a
you're
there,
at, yeah, whether you're in
and,
church
and
and
not to cut it.
oh, go
Not to
ahead.
cut you, King. And as Meek says, I say it again, there's levels to this. So he also gave that analogy that in our times, yes, we was taught that, if somebody put their hands on you, you whip their ass. You dig?
Mm-hmm.
But however, prior to that, when it's just the words, the sticks in the snow, the words and so forth and so on, you go to your guidance counselor, you let somebody know that that's happening. Exactly. And even then we probably didn't know the how imperative that was. It was that documentation being, you know what I'm saying, given. You understand? The last thing, and I'm give back to you, is this is not a racial situation. This is not a gang of black kids on a white kid or a gang of white kids on a black kid. This is an unfortunate situation that I do believe he has some credibility in saying that it could be construed. It can be construed as a premeditated act if something happened the day before that made you carry that knife to school the next day. That's how the judicial system can look at it. Does it necessarily mean that that Carmelo Anthony actually thought along those lines? No, it doesn't. However, dealing with the judicial system, it can be construed, and that may be something that they're definitely gonna bring to the proceedings, is that he had time to think, and actually whatever may or may not have happened the day before or the week before led him to bring that knife to school that track meet day.
Well, I'm gonna say this, Frankie. There is some credibility to both sides because I think about it. I carry a box cutter every day, right?
Mm.
When I wake up in the morning, do I think, yeah, son from such and such, yeah, wait, let him say something. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get him. Like that. I don't think about it like that, but I think like New York City's crazy right now. You know what I'm saying? So you know what I mean? I got to protect myself because I'm out in the public. But now check this out. If I'm invited, let's say Frankie says, hey, whatever, my family members graduated high school, Nick, yo, come to the graduation. Nick's not bringing the box cutter to the school to the graduation, though. You
Facts.
understand what I'm saying? So
Facts.
I think that's where the line is going to be drawn in this case, where it's like, okay, yeah, we understand that this is a crazy world. You got to protect yourself, but there's a time and place for everything, as our parents would say. You know what I mean? And in that time and place, you're supposed to go to whoever's the supervisor, whoever's the superior, whoever's the coach, whoever you came there with. I don't know if his parents were present on the scene, because I know, you know what I'm saying? When I was growing up, I played a lot of sports, and I would just grow up with my moms, really. So my mom's dealing with the other kids. She ain't never really come to none of my sports stuff. You know what I'm saying? So she never really seen me play. And I used to be busting ass, but it was kind of a blessing because maybe I would have froze up in front of my moms. You know what I'm saying? I had nobody
Yeah.
there, you know what I'm saying, to worry about. I just get it in, you know what I mean? So maybe his parents were busy doing something. They weren't there, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things to draw from in a certain sense. But when you just get back to the facts of the matter, is yeah, you knew you were going to a school event. You chose to pick up a knife. You chose to say, hey, I might have to use this today. When in any situation within those parameters, that's a no-no. You know what I mean? So you're dead wrong in that, right? You know what I mean? So you're gonna go to jail for something, but is it gonna be for the first degree murder? I'm not too sure. You know what I'm saying? And I wanna jump into something now along the lines of,
Okay,
because we were
real
talking about
quick,
earlier. Oh, go
real
ahead.
quick, real quick. Earlier, the white individual, he spoke about living in fear of blacks. and you know, it just came back. It just, you know, regurgitated in my mind that, like, you know, this is a day and an era where, you know, a lot of blacks are living in fear of not only their environment as a whole, whether it's the police, whether it's, you know, just other ops, other individuals in their neighborhoods, and so forth and so on. So, you know, one of the things that I got to be very, very, you know, adamant about, you know, as you said, and you know, and it's just what it is, you know, and even Charleston White says it, is that these conflict resolutionary methods are not being promoted or taught
Not at
inside of
all.
our schools, So again, we have to also look
Also,
at
they're
society.
not being taught in the household either, because
Not
that's
in
where
the
it
household.
starts.
And I was going to get to that because we have to understand that even as adults, as parents, as uncles, as brothers, big brothers, and so forth and so on, we must hold ourselves accountable because we're not given these tools, or we're not affording these tools to our younger brothers and sisters in order for them to, as I said earlier, though I may not have used it at that point in time that it was given to me, it was compartmentalized, whereas it resurfaced at any given moment when I had that aha moment that, oh wow, my pops told me of situations like this, or my Uncle Magnetic told me of situations like this, and so forth and so on. So yeah, we as parents, as uncles, we as the village, you dig, have to get back to a point whereas we're telling our babies, man, we're telling our nieces, our nephews, our sons, our daughters, our cousins, and so forth and so on, that, yo, listen, man, everything doesn't result to a gun. I remember on Friday after next, one of the Fridays, and you know, the pops, when Debo kept
Yeah,
picking on
yeah,
Ice Cube,
yeah.
and he said, "Son, you ain't got to resort to a gun. You know, in our days, we resorted to these two, you know what I'm saying, these two knuckle sandwiches. You heard? And a lot of these individuals are so afraid of getting a scar on their face or a lump on their nose that they just bypass it, or even after a fight that you may have started, once you get the worst end of it, you immediately run down the block and snatch a gun off the person's waist that you know, or in your house, and getting a gun that you know your pops got snatched, or so, because you can't take a L. But
Well,
again,
all
those L's build character.
the other thing too is, Frankie, is that you'll be going viral online on World Star Hip Hop for getting your ass kicked. So these kids are terrified of that as well because they have really shallow egos, and this social media means
Facts.
a lot to them. So how many videos we see online of kids fighting? You know what I'm saying? And the kid that's on the other end of it, there's times where I've heard of situations where these kids wind up taking their own lives because of the comments,
Absolutely.
because of what's being said, and the pressure just becomes too much for them. And this is their whole life. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like they walking through the streets and people messing with them. You know, they whole little world on the phone is shattering and falling apart because
Yeah.
they got the short end of the stick. So, you know, it like I said, it goes back to the social media, the parenting, and living in this real reality that this online stuff, or how you feel about, you know, this particular situation, this could change the whole alignment and trajectory of our whole family line, our whole family tree. You know what I'm saying? He might be the
Whole fact.
oldest kid. You know what I'm saying? He ain't gonna be having no babies in prison. Ain't gonna be no grandkids. Ain't gonna be no graduations. Ain't gonna be none of that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, you done took some shit away from your moms, your pops, your little sister, your little brother, whoever the case may be. Just thinking on a selfish note, in a sense where, nah, I'm gonna do what I want to do right now because I can't control myself, or I feel like this is what warrants this in this situation. You know what I mean? And that's why I want to jump into these little joints right here concerning what he's being charged with, and you know, the time he might be looking at now. Hold on.
Oh, you locked in. Salutes.
It says Carmelo Anthony, 17, is facing first degree murder charge. He's being prosecuted under Texas concurrent jurisdiction laws, often referred to as prosecutor direct file laws.
Mm.
So, what does that mean exactly? Prosecutor direct file laws, Frankie.
Well, I'm gonna start with, I don't actually know what prosecutor's direct file law is, but if I had to assume, is basically anything that the prosecutor may, and this is an assumption, so don't quote me. Direct file, that at any given time he can file, he can continue to file if there's anything that he may think of that's potential that he can still continue to file. If he starts today with let's just say attempted murder or murder, you dig, tomorrow he may come and say, well, you know, we might want to take this off because now I feel it might be premeditated, so now we're going to charge you with, you know, we're going to give you the death penalty, attached to that, and we're going to charge you with premeditated murder, or so forth and so on.
So
I know what
basically,
concurrent. I know what
oh, okay,
concurrent means. Concurrent means to run
back to back, right?
along together.
Yeah.
Consecutive means to run it back to back.
Oh, okay.
You dig? Concurrent means that you're summing everything up. You're putting it in one kit and caboodle. Yo, I'm a bundle all these charges together,
Oh, I see.
and
You might have two cases. They put them in one. You do three flat. Bang, everything's knocked out type shit.
right. You dig? You
Got
might
you.
have a murder in the first, and let's say murder in the second degree, or or a charge of involuntary manslaughter. Instead of, what I'm saying, you get the charge. Now the jury may find you guilty, or you may take a plea for the two. What we're gonna do is the one that carries the most time, or maybe in some situations the one that carries the less time. We're gonna run this concurrent so that both charges is into one. They're consolidated, and we're
Mm,
gonna give you this sentence. You dig? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now let's get into this. So now it says criminally negligent homicide, state jail felony, maximum fine 10,000, basically 180 days, up to 2 years. Then you got manslaughter, second degree felony, same fine, 10 to 20. Then you got murder. I guess that's what he's being charged with, first degree felony. You could do anywhere from 5 to 99 or life in prison. And then I don't think they're charging him with capital murder, which would be a capital
Right.
felony, but that would be
Right.
life in prison with, or the death penalty. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Okay.
where do you think he might fall in those lines right there?
Hey, yo, truthfully, man, for me, man, hey, man, I'm not Cleo, man. I'm not Miss Cleo,
Hey,
or
okay, okay,
so
okay.
it's too early. But what I do say is, for murder, we see that by the statute guidelines that you just showed, it's anywhere between 5 through 99. That dash in between the 5 is through because of whatever mitigating or aggravating or immediate circumstances, that will determine whether or not, you know, uh, whether or not you'll have the opportunity to get less or more time. And before we go on a little bit, you dig what I'm saying? Because I had to try to understand exactly what the direct law meant. And what it says is the direct file allows district attorneys to charge and try a juvenile as an adult without a hearing or testimony of any kind
Mm,
from the
mm,
offender. You dig?
mm,
According to the
mm.
Annie E. Casey Foundation, direct file treats youth like many adults. Regardless of their actual culpability, the consequences of direct violence are irreversible. So, uh, that basically says that even
That
though
sounds heavy right there, Frankie.
it's definitely heavy because it takes you from a juvenile into an adult. And now you're going to get the sentence that an adult would get, as opposed to getting a sentence like it is a juvenile. If you got charged and sentenced as a juvenile,
Juvenile life,
you
21, you
get the
out.
most exactly. So once this changes the ball game. This changes the whole dynamic of the whole situation. If the direct
It's
file law
really
comes
high
into
stakes
effect,
now.
it's a
And you
very
can't
high stake,
and you can't go back and reverse this filing,
and it's
appeal it or
irreversible.
nothing.
It's
Exactly.
irreversible. So that word in and of itself is something scary. If that is the case for Carmelo Anthony, which may be the reason, or I'm almost certain is the reason that it's taking so long to come with an indictment, because
Mm.
they are going through the situation with a fine hair
Comb.
comb,
Yeah.
right, in order to make sure that they uncover every increment, every minute factor that may exist, in order to make sure that they make the right determination at the end. You dig? That won't ultimately be a factor in causing some kind of blow up with these individuals that are trying already to create some kind of racial divide. So, yeah, I think they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's at this moment. And the reason that they said on the last platform that it may take up to several months in order to get, to understand whether or not the grand jury even indicts, or before they bring it in front of the grand jury. So, yeah,
Mm.
but that's it. Yeah, bro.
All right, so now let's get into this because I wanted to hold on. If I got the clips here, hold on. What would be self-defense? What would warrant self-defense, but what would actually be excessive force. So we got one joint up here. Hold on, let me find out I didn't upload the other one I was supposed to.
Yeah,
By Clyde. Hold on.
it's crazy, man. You know, it's real
Okay,
crazy.
what is excessive force in self-defense? If the prosecution can demonstrate that you used more force than necessary to stop the attack, it may be considered excessive force and cannot be used to support a self-defense claim. An experienced trial attorney can determine if self-defense is viable in your criminal case. So,
Um,
if somebody walks up on you and says, hey, you're in the wrong place, and
right.
then you say, hey, you put your hands on me, watch what happens to you. And if the person's approaching you, then the person says, hey, come on, man, you got to go, or whatever, puts their arm on you, gives you a little shove. Does that warrant a stab to the heart? Or could you have just snuffed, son, knuckled up, got it on, and then somebody would have came in and broke it up, and the both of you would have maybe got a suspension or something, you know what I mean? But could that, in your mind, be considered excessive force? Maybe not particularly. You take the Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf out of the situation, just in general. If you heard, yo, Frankie, yo, we was on the block, with the boot, son snuffed son in the face, and his son came with the butcher knife and bound him.
Nah, that's not excessive force. Not where I come from.
No, in the
And
court of the law is
in
what
the
I'm saying.
court of in the court of the law, and you got to realize that our perspective of how we look at things, you know what I'm saying, really doesn't, even take in the court of the laws at the present. At the present is danger. You dig? At the present is a sense of urgency to get you off of me or away from me. So I got to think first in that aspect when it came to that situation. Whereas, Karmelo individual approaching him saying, yo, it's time for you to leave, whatever commentary existed then. Karmelo saying, look, man, I ain't trying to hear you, whatever the case may be. Don't put your hands on me or you're going to see what's happened. The individual, you know what I mean? And this is not verbatim what happened, listeners. This is just, you know what I'm saying, hypothetical. I mean, in a sense, you know what I'm saying? I'm just, going as I go. Placing his hands on individual. One of the things that we got to keep in mind, one of the most important things that we got to keep in mind, in different states, the stand your ground, these self-defense laws vary from state to state to state. So something simple as an individual placing their hands on you in certain states can constitute you standing your ground. And however, whether it's you putting your hands up to fight or hitting him in his mouth or just backing out without thinking, not even knowing that you getting ready to stab him in his heart, but stab him in the chest, and ultimately you hit his heart. You dig?
Well, I had the clip, but I didn't upload it. That's like a little mistake on my end. But basically, what self-defense warrants in that case would be you trying to stop a kidnapping, you trying to stop a aggravated assault robbery, you trying to prevent a homicide, etc. It doesn't it doesn't constitute you got into a fist fight or there was a potential for a fist fight and you get to kill somebody. It doesn't say that. So that's where
Well,
I think that the excessive force might be
maybe
more
play it, and
plausible.
you
Yeah, more plausible for the defense to say, "Hey, how is this self-defense when they weren't kidnapping him? He wasn't being robbed violently. This wasn't a home invasion. There
absolutely
wasn't there wasn't knives pulled or gun pulled on him. His life wasn't in imminent danger, and he actually was given the opportunity to walk away."
facts. Nah, I got to go with you. I'm with you when you're right. So yeah, those are definitely, those are definitely plausible. You know what I'm saying? Analogies, man. So yeah.
But
Listen,
let's
like
see
I
what the
said,
lawyer got to say about it, Frankie. How about that?
go ahead, man. Push the push.
All right, let's do that. All right, where's my boy? Here we go.
In order for Karmelo to prevail on a defense, he has to establish that he reasonably feared for his life. That's a steep hill to climb given the facts that I've heard so far, but that's the standard here in Texas. It is going to be incredibly difficult for Karmelo's defense team to establish that Austin, the 17-year-old who wanted Karmelo out of his tent represented a deadly threat or even serious bodily harm. Again, we don't know what was said. We don't know what was threatened. What Karmelo said was that he was going to put his hands on me. That's not he was going to kill me. That's not, I thought he was seriously going to hurt me. All he described was the potential for an offensive touching, which is not going to be enough without more. And the evidence is still coming in.
Words of power. Words of power, and I couldn't have said it more eloquently, man. And him being a person of the law, of the judicial system, I think he hit it as accurately and as accurately as possible, man. You dig what I'm saying? The words of him putting his hands on me, as opposed to me being afraid that they were going to do something that was going to cause me imminent bodily harm or life threatening. Again, man, it says a lot. And that's the a lot of people don't understand, that word investigation and from the onstart, man, why they tell you it's either good to remain silent unless you know that everything that you say goes in your favor. You just best be quiet.
It's best to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and prove it.
And prove it. You dig? So a lot of individuals do not understand that very important aspect of the law that the forefathers, so-called forefathers, have written. Be quiet. You dig? And whether you know it or not, man, you dig. One thing I learned about the law, man, you dig what I'm saying? You being ignorant of the law isn't the judicial system's fault. You dig? You can't go into court and say, I don't know that, because the burden is still on you. You dig what I'm saying? So I had to learn the hard ways, you know what I mean, and following motions and so forth. And so ignorance is bliss, you heard? So
Well, no,
um,
I was just gonna say that it was some case that I was either watching or somebody that I knew. It was a while ago, I forget, but they said ignorance doesn't play a factor in this decision right here, because
right,
just because you didn't know something
right,
doesn't mean that you're not dead fucking wrong.
right. Or that we're gonna take this time back even though we were wrong. You dig? And a lot of times in the judicial system, it's just like Nikki Baby just said, it's all about articulation. So if you don't articulate that on paper, if you can't convey that, and worse, let me make this very clear. They don't care about what you say coming out of your mouth. You can go in and present the on pointest argument that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the criminal justice system was wrong in giving you 50 years. But if it's not documented and the case law is not presented and articulated on paper, on documentation, as the brother said earlier, guess what?
Documentation beats conversation.
Conversation. You walking back out that courtyard with 50 years, with that courtroom with 50 years. And they was
Man,
dead wrong and they know it.
man, you could walk up in the bank, son, talking that slick shit with your $5,000 suit on. They say, hey, well, that sounds great, Mr. Nick. Can we see your finances?
Can we see your receipts, huh?
We need your documentation that stipulates
that
you are
documentation.
Mr. Big Stuff. Who do you think you are? Well, we need to know. You know what I'm saying? So, like
Yeah,
you said, man, you got to have things laid out in black and white.
Yeah, and that's something else that us as black and brown people, man, we fail to do, or we fail to understand, or we was given no knowledge of, man. So it's a lot of learning to be learned, man. And I think that, you know what I'm saying, us as a people, we need to, you know what I'm saying, old head always used to tell me, man, you got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. And I like tell you that, shut the fuck up and listen and look. You dig?
Yeah,
Look,
you
listen,
got.
and observe, you know?
Yeah, you got to listen. Because my mom used to say that to me in the morning. She said you got to listen, breathe, and watch twice as much as you speak, or you will have 2 eyes. I mean, you have 1 eye and 2 mouths. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
God
man,
designed you a
dig.
particular way, and you got to recognize that. You know what I mean?
Again, those of us that grew up in, you know what I'm saying, spiritual homes or religious homes or whatever the case may be, the Bible even says it, man. You dig what I'm saying? Your mouth can be a two-edged sword. You dig, good or bad,
Factual.
especially if you don't know what's coming out of it. You dig what I'm saying?
I
And,
even think in Islam they say something like your private parts in your mouth can get you in a lot of crazy shit, son.
a lot
You
of
got to
crazy
protect
stuff,
them and
bro.
watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You dig? So yeah, you got to be able to, again, goes back to discernment, man. And discernment takes you going through the succession of lessons and understanding them as you go through them, or at least attempting to understand them as you go through them. in order to make better conscious decisions as you get, older and start to, because again, nothing's new under the sun. So some of the things that we walk through in life, we walk through 2 or 3 times during our life or through our life, if not more. You dig? So again, if you walking through these situations and these obstacles or these circumstances, and you done went through them 2 or 3 times, and you still don't know how to circumvent them or go around them, yo, that says a lot about you. You's a dumb person. You understand what I'm saying? You's a dumb
You
person.
big dummy.
Yeah, you dig? So yeah, man. Again,
Well,
man, it's too early, you dig? And again, man, anything that we're saying, we're just building, just, what I'm saying, not only for entertainment, but to hopefully enlighten if we can, or if something that we say here on Vertical Talk, resonates with individuals, so forth, and also get the commentary for those that are listening or paying attention. So, yo, put it in the comment section, man. You know what I'm saying? Write what your thoughts may be, write what your perspective on life or concerning the situation is, and let us answer back. You dig? Because each one teach one, man. I learned from y'all as y'all may learn from me or Uncle Nick, and it's a blessing to learn, man. Trust me, it's a blessing. So yeah, man.
yeah, and on that note, I think we said all we can say in this episode right here, or
Yeah,
we
man.
said all we can say. Pardon me,
Yeah,
slip of
man.
the tongue in
You
this
better know
episode,
it.
and I think, man, you should take us on out, Frankie. What do you think about that?
Hey, listen, man. My way of taking us out, man, is saying that, man, I can't wait until the next time, man. For all my chats, man, for all my people in the panel, for all the people that come and visit Vertical Talk, man. Keep coming, man. Hit that notification button. You dig? Hit that share button. Share it with others. You dig? If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Hit that like button, man. And yo, listen, man. Be blessed. Walk in the light, you heard, and more than anything, man, continue to send your prayers to the utmost, man, so he can send those blessings down, man, to those that I left behind, man, in those man-made catacombs, man. I salute you, man, for being able to go through what you're going through, because I know it's a tough ride, man. Keep going through it, man. Stay in that law library so you can get through it. You understand? And that's where it's at, man. Nick, man, what you got?
Yeah, man, like I tell them every time, man, y'all be safe, y'all be cool, y'all be easy. Don't do anything stupid on this fucking internet or in these goddamn streets, because you will be content. They will put tips on your plate. And remember, don't be getting intoxicated, because alcohol don't care if you're a bum on the corner, penniless, toothless, or if you're a billionaire sitting on a yacht. You consume them too much, he'll do you dirty. So don't get drunk, don't get twisted, stay on point, you know what I'm saying? Celebrate, have a little drink, but don't be excessive. That's my little word for the week, you know what I'm saying?
Man, salutes, man. Take us on out, King.
Peace. Let's do it.
Fuck about.